Will the real Meghan Markle please stand up? Do we have any idea who Meghan Markle truly is? And that is a result of Meghan Markle herself because she tries to portray this one image. And we see this reflected in a glowing profile that recently appeared in Maria Claire. Yet at the same time, we get all these contradictory stories of Meghan behind the scenes, showing that she's not the saintly figure that she wants to portray. She's been accused of being a bully multiple times on different continents. We know that she is difficult to work with. She also drops friends for the slightest, most frivolous reasons you can imagine. And she has no relationship with her biological family nor her husband's biological family. And yet she wants to portray herself as opening her arms to refugees. And we all know none of this is true in some ways. The image of Meghan Markle is so desperate to try to show the world just simply doesn't exist. And this is why she has such massive unfavorability ratings. We have a new YouGov poll that just came out showing that Meghan Markle's likability, I believe, is at 23%. And that's not a surprise. And the problem is Meghan Markle and her PR team, because she is trying so incredibly hard to portray an image that simply does not exist. It's not really her. She cannot show the world her true face because I think her true face in many ways is not all that likable. And she knows that. So she's so desperate to try to mask it and all this altruism. And it always comes out behind the scenes that she really is not like that in the slightest. And of course, we've seen how her relationships with her friends and family and her husband's family have all played out publicly. And so I think Meghan Markle and her PR team really need to stop this saintly image, stop trying to make Meghan Markle the greatest thing since sliced bread, and actually try to show us the real Meghan Markle, even if she's not that likable. But I doubt that will happen. But we really do need to explore this Marie Claire article where you see again this desperate attempt to try to show us how great Meghan is. And it just simply doesn't work. In fact, even when you hear her answers to some holiday things, they come across as very empty. Yet at the same time, she's trying to portray warmth. None of it works. And so we are going to go into this today. But if you guys haven't been to Royal News Network before, hello, my name is Brittany and I provide compelling royal commentary to you. So if you guys want to hit that subscribe button, that would be absolutely awesome. I would love to have you back. And obviously right now it is Christmas time. So if you are interested in a gorgeous piece from Ana Lucia Diamonds, I got some great sort of footage this weekend showing off some of my incredible pieces from them. I have this fantastic ring here, my tennis bracelet, so many different things. And so some of their things are on sale, including the diamond hoop earrings I have right now. They are on sale, or at least the smaller versions. I believe I have the carat size, and the half carat size is on sale. And if you use code ROYAL20, you shall save an additional 20% on the sale, which I think is a fantastic deal. Not everything is on sale, but you can find some great Black Friday deals there as well. You also have the option to add a ring for free, although you don't get to use the Royal 20 and save 20%. So it's up to you. Do you want the free ring or do you want to save 20%? It is a fantastic opportunity for you. So go ahead and check that out. Follow the link up above and check out some amazing pieces. My necklace is from them too. I absolutely love my cross necklace. One of my favorite things. All right, guys. Now with that lovely announcement out of the way, let's get to this Marie Claire article, which is one of the most ridiculous things I've ever read. It's sort of amazing how people, and I've actually followed this girl on Instagram. I can't remember how I came across her, but the article for this, and it's amazing how much people just sort of salivate over what Meghan does because they somehow want to portray it as this like great thing. And I'm like, to me, it just seems so empty. Anytime Harry and Meghan do anything, it comes across as so empty to me because we know what they do to their family behind the scenes. We know what they do to their staff behind the scenes, allegedly. So whenever they're like, oh, we're so nice and wonderful and amazing to these group of refugees, you should encourage them as well. And I just can't help but think you treat your family terribly, but you see these people for half an hour one day and you treat them lovingly. So who is the real Meghan here? Because I think how you treat your family and your friends is more of an indication of who you really are than this 5 minutes here. And obviously, I'm exaggerating a bit on the time. She may have spent an hour there. But I think Meghan Markle's PR team really needs to stop this nonsense. They need to stop this nonsense because it's not working, because we know how she acts with other people who are not these people she's trying to get a good PR piece from. We know how she acts. So when they do this kind of stuff, it comes across as unbelievably fake because it doesn't match with what we see most of the time from Meghan. So the article says exclusive, Meghan Markle hosts heartfelt holiday dinner for Afghan women starting new lives in America. But of course, who will she not host? Her father, her half siblings, Harry's family. She won't host any of them, but will she host these people? Yeah. Why? Because she can get a good PR message out of it. And they are willing and impressed with her hour-long appearance. Let's say she stayed there about an hour. They're impressed with that. People who actually get to know her are not impressed by her anymore. And that's what Meghan fears more than anything else, is people no longer being impressed by this shallow, vain, and vapid persona that she puts on. And I do have to say, these pants are horrifically awful. She constantly wears linen and it looks terrible and it looks sloppy. And you point it out, and people who are on Meghan's side go, well, it's like, but she's wearing linen. And I'm like, yeah, she's wearing linen. If she doesn't wear linen, it doesn't crease like that. Most likely. So she could pick something else. There's actually even an Instagram picture from the author of this piece, which I particularly think makes Meghan look really wide towards her bottom half. And I'm like, why in the world are you wearing the most hideous, ugly pants that make you look wide and are terribly wrinkled? It's an awful look. But let's move on and check out this piece, because Meghan Markle, I think, deserves to be called out, because some people don't notice this hypocrisy or just brush it off. It was like, well, I saw her be wonderful for an hour. Yeah. But is she wonderful for a day, a week, a month, a year? Meghan can put on a good face for a little bit. But the true Meghan is what goes on behind the scenes. So if you are impressed with this, then I wonder, can you see, or are you aware that there are two sides to this coin? So let's say holiday traditions are meant to be shared and passed down through the generations, working side by side in the kitchen or sharing stories around the living room, which we know is not happening with Meghan Markle because she has no family besides her mother. And I will say, when it comes to her mother, I think the only reason her mom's around really is because her mom's totally in, you could say, on the whole setup or whatever it is. I don't know what you would call it, but her mom won't call her out on stuff. And her mom's maybe in on it. And so her mom is the only one she can handle in her life, because her mom is the only one who doesn't care how she treats other people. That's the thing. That's why her mom's in her life. At least that's my opinion. Take it for what you will. But for one group of Afghan women who have resettled in California, many of whom have been separated from their family for years, new memories are being created with friends who understand the complex joys and sadness of celebrating far from home. Of course, Harry isn't there because he is actually celebrating Christmas far from home. For Meghan Markle, it's about empowering these women through a community that celebrates both their heritage and their fresh beginnings. Of course, again, she doesn't celebrate her husband's community, which is, an entire country. She left them in the dust when it was convenient for her. It's Saturday night in Venice Beach, California, and I'm sitting across the table from Meghan. We share dinner with the women of the Mina's List, an organization that empowers women in the fields of politics and human rights, and the Southern California chapter of the Archwell Foundation's Welcome Project, which we don't hear anything about. Harry and Meghan do these things, and they're kind of weird and they're nonsensical, and then we also don't hear anything about them. And you could say in some ways that's good, but it also seems like they don't really ever care, because they're constantly flitting from thing to thing to thing to thing to thing to thing. They have a whole slew of things they care about. You got the Invictus Games, you got this Welcome Project, you got the Parents Network, and they're so divided in what they're focusing on. They can't really unite and actually focus on uplifting one single thing because they're so all over the place. It says it launched in 2023, an initiative created by Harry and Meghan to support programs for women who have resettled in the United States from Afghanistan. There are currently 11 Welcome Project branches in 9 states across the country, including one in San Antonio, which Harry and Meghan visited in March. Like, what are these projects? Like, it just doesn't seem like it's an actual thing. Seems like a thing where they can throw a couple $1,000s at it, call it good, and then walk away, because they don't seem that engaged. And it seems we're just programs for women, of course, because it's all about the women. It's never ever about the men in any of their projects, really, except for, you could argue, Invictus Games. And it just seems not like something they actually care about because they don't know how to promote any of these things. Says the Duchess, of course, I have to say the Duchess, met many women here in Venice Beach during the Kirking event in February, and I'm struck by the easy conversations they share as dishes are passed around in the lantern lit gardens at our place, a woman and migrant owned cookware company. We dig into the mouth watering Middle Eastern inspired dishes created by Soho House chef Shane Fateman. So you got Soho House connection there. Himself an Iranian immigrant, as stories are shared and poetry is read. Connection is a common theme throughout the night. But Meghan doesn't have any connections with her family, her husband's family, or some of her friends. Again, I go back to Jessica Mulroney, whose children played a prominent role in her wedding. Jessica Mulroney had a place of honor in her ceremony. And because of a little social media snafu, Meghan dropped her just immediately. And as far as we know, they're no longer in contact. I mean, it was sort of a dumb social media thing. Shouldn't you just give your friend the benefit of the doubt or just say, hey, I know my friend and it was a moment of something, I don't know. It's just like, I'm struck by these easy conversations. Yeah, because they don't mean anything. It's small talk. They're not real conversations in a way. She's not really connecting with these women. It's just a little bit to get by. She's there to impress Kristen, nobody else. She wants good press. So obviously, all royals and everyone who's in press in some way wants good press, but she doesn't want just good press. She wants glowing press. She's going to get somebody who's going to be wildly impressed by her because she needs somebody to be impressed by her to make her sound better than she is because she can't do it on her own. So it's like easy conversations, lanterns. Although I will say I have an Our Place plate that I got at a YouTube event. Actually, I think it's fantastic. But it's like connection is a common theme, but she has no connections. That's the thing. Her husband, who had huge connections with many members of his family, dropped them all for her. So she doesn't really care about connections. She cares about publicity. And so this is all pointless. It doesn't mean anything to me. Even though they're trying to convey this great thing, it means nothing because Meghan doesn't have anything to really grow from here. She says, from my standpoint, I think part of why we wanted to make sure we had this opportunity to all be together again, so many of us right now, is that the holidays come up and have already begun in many regards. It brings so much emotion for people, Meghan tells the group. Okay, does this nincompoop not know that these women are Muslim, most likely, and therefore do not celebrate Christmas, Meghan Markle? Like, do you not know they don't celebrate Christmas? Are you aware of that? Are you aware of that? Like, it's not a holiday for them, which again goes to show she doesn't really care about these women because she's thinking from herself, oh, it's the holidays right now, opportunities to come together again. And yes, when you're in the United States, of course, even if you're not celebrating Christmas, Christmas is everywhere. You can't get away from it in the West. And I get that. But they most likely don't celebrate Christmas. Let me see something here real quick. Don't know if they celebrate anything else around this time of year. It doesn't seem like they do, but they definitely don't celebrate Christmas. So her talking about the holidays is sort of insensitive. And she goes, you miss home, you miss your country, and also can find comfort in the new community that you have here, she adds. She continues, adding, I'm grateful that we are able to be part of that community. You're not part of that community. I hope all the women know that she's not really part of that community. She's there because she wants publicity and she wants accolades. That's why she's there. She's there for no other reason. I don't think she probably cares two iotas about any of these people that she's meeting, to be honest, except for the journalist, because she wants the journalist to write a glowing report. Meghan, dressed in her signature neutrals, which look terrible, checks in with each woman at our table because it's called small talk. They're not really going anywhere. Maybe she remembers a couple of key things. She strikes me as someone who might remember two or three things about you, but and she can ask you about them, but doesn't do anything more than that. Like she'll never go above and beyond. Why? Because she doesn't really care. Following up on conversations they had earlier this year when she joined the group to cook traditional Afghan food. Like her husband, Harry, she possesses a gift of not only making everyone in the room feel instantly comfortable, but also valued. And working in this business, I can assure you that is no small feat. Well, she didn't make her in-laws feel valued, her friends feel valued, her other family members feel valued. She didn't. Why? Because she is more than willing to use people and then dump them as soon as it's convenient. That is who she is. As soon as it's convenient, as soon as she can step up the ladder, she dumps them. So she doesn't care. She is not valuing them, really. She is valuing them as a reflection of what she can get this journalist to write. That is the only reason she values them. And again, when they do these kind of things, it looks so hypocritical because we all know and we've all seen reflected what Meghan Markle has done to her husband's relationship with his family, her relationship with her own family. So none of this washes away that, because everybody knows your family is the most challenging relationship in some ways that you'll ever have. And being close to them means more than a couple of random people you meet a couple of times a year. It just does. When two of the dinner guests stand up to read a beautiful poem full of hope and sadness, pieces written by Mina's List staffer and a Welcome Project member as part of their storytelling project, Meghan is visibly moved. All of you have stories to tell, and the power of you telling them and sharing them with each other, with our broader community, is what will help propel the change that I think we all dream of, that you see and hear in the poems we just listened to. That is word salad. That is word salad nonsense. That means nothing. That's gobbledygook. She's just performing. That's all she's doing. So Mina's List helped evaporate some of the women. Its executive director, Teresa Casale, tells me that the organization has never done work within the United States before, but applied to become part of the Welcome Project after hearing about Archwell's efforts. It was the opportunity of a lifetime to be able to partner in that way. The women I met share similar backgrounds in social activism, and many having worked in government and journalism back home. So these, I would imagine, most likely women of a higher social class. So these were not the women who were left at home to be under the threat of the Taliban. So these are women of privilege. These are women of, you could say, education, experience, all these sorts of things. So in some ways, I'm not quite as impressed, because these women were ones who are going to flourish wherever they went, most likely, because they're more cultured, you could say, than some of the other women in Afghanistan. And that's because if you have a background in government and journalism, most likely you have experienced things and you're able to adapt better than somebody who's lived in the backwaters of Afghanistan their entire life and then moved to someplace like America. So in some ways, I just feel like I'm not as impressed. There's an increased feeling of isolation when that sense of purpose has been taken away. Okay. These highly accomplished individuals, so, very privileged in Afghanistan, by the way, again, very, very privileged, also had the added trauma of watching decades of their progress in women's rights be erased. Okay. Because of the botched pullout of Afghanistan. All right. Decades of their progress in women's, but what does it mean by decades? Because they had, I guess, 2 decades, maybe, kinda, sort of. You had somewhat peace, I guess. Not peace, really, but as that just seems like a weird choice of wording to me. The situation for women and girls in Afghanistan continues to be dire, which Harry and Meghan don't highlight, with females largely prevented from accessing jobs, education, or even leaving their home without a male escort. So those are the women you should actually focus on. These women will most likely be just fine. According to the UN Women's Survey from August 2024, 99% of women the organization surveyed felt they had limited to zero influence on decision-making in their communities. Yet in California, new paths begin. Of course, because these were the women of privilege to begin with. They're not the women that, I mean, who even from the UN could they interview in Afghanistan, to be quite honest? One woman tells me about having arrived in the States in the wake of 9/11. So she's been here a long time. These are not recent refugees. Some of them have been here for a long time. She was able to teach soldiers vital language skills before they went off to the Middle East. Another speaks of helping newly resettled families set up email addresses, handle paperwork, and find housing amid the extraordinary expensive California real estate market. Thanks to Mina's List and the Welcome Project, they found a small piece of home with one attendee sharing her first get together with the group gave her a lovely feeling that I'll never forget. Of course, you got to get Meghan hugging people because she's a stage 4 hugger. Meghan's a stage 4 hugger. Meghan says that the Welcome Project is a perfect example of seeing an immediate need and saying, okay, how do you make this a much larger vision so it's not just short-term banding on a problem, but a long-term solution? Okay, but she's not giving a long-term solution. That's the thing. And what about her family, her husband's family, some of her friends? Again, I bring those up not to be repetitive, but just to re-emphasize the point. Meghan is doling out all this love to strangers, but yet can't dole out love to family. That should tell you everything about her. She shares it was rewarding to see women on the other side of what has been really hard time for many of them, more than most can imagine. We talk about one of our table mates who just recently reunited with her mother after successfully moving her over from Afghanistan, and another who had been separated from her son for years. Stories Meghan says touch her on a personal level. As a mom, can you imagine not being able to see your child? Well, ask your husband's father that, Meghan Markle, or your own father, by the way. As a mom, can you imagine not being able to see your child? Well, as a dad, imagine not being able to see your child or your grandchildren. This means nothing because she has not fixed up her personal life. Her personal life is an absolute disaster. So is her husband's. And so when she's saying, oh, imagine not being able to see your child, I was like, well, you can ask King Charles that. I'm sure he'd be able to tell you how difficult has it been for you to keep your children away from him, especially when he has cancer. Like, none of this means anything when she says it because we all know what she has portrayed to the world. She tries to do this, but it doesn't work because she can't keep it up behind the scenes. As a community is coming together to welcome their new neighbors, Meghan says, whatever cultures are different, whatever traditions are different, there's actually so much we have in common. Well, why couldn't you figure that out when you were in freaking England? There is a big culture difference, but you care about this cultural difference, but you don't care about that cultural difference, which means you don't care about cultural differences. You can't highlight one without showing how you were unable to do it with the other. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. It doesn't compute. Oh my gosh, this is so bad. There's a lot of joy in discovering each other's new rituals too, she says. Feeling many of us in the room experience as we try new foods and listen to aforementioned poetry. Even though some of us don't understand the language, Meghan notes that she feels the emotion behind their words as she listens to their hopes for a better future. I'm sure she's there probably thinking of the next Cartier piece of jewelry that she's going to get. That's why she's happy. She doesn't really care about these people because she talks about finding joy in each other's new rituals. Well, why couldn't she find joy in the rituals that she got to experience as a member of the royal family? She certainly hated those, which means she hates theirs too. That's the thing. You can't have it both ways. You either have to embrace it on all fronts, not just when it's convenient to you. When it's just convenient to you, what that screams to me is that you don't really care. And so, again, who is the real Meghan Markle? Is it this? Or the woman sometimes pointing her finger and getting angry at people? Because we heard she gets angry quite a bit. And putting your thumb in your pant pocket does not help your pants be less wrinkled. Meghan Markle. Meghan says, you will find comfort in things you know, but you also find so much community and connection in things you don't know as well, which means absolutely nothing. It means absolutely nothing. My goodness, it is bad. So this is from Shauna Knepp, who helped with the hub, which Meghan sort of took over and helped them launch the cookbook. Although I think it was more because Meghan wanted to launch the cookbook. She just says, I just remember thinking, wow, she gets it. Knepp said of Meghan's work with Community Kitchen, they get it. The power of women coming together. From that moment on, I thought to myself, one day I want to be part of something like this that is bringing women together. Of course, do we know if Meghan keeps up with any of those people? Probably not. And again, Meghan Markle was more than willing to drop her sister-in-law and make her sister-in-law uncomfortable in order to promote herself. With Hub, that was 13 different countries represented. Meghan says, we are constantly learning from each other. Of course, she couldn't learn from the one other country that was represented within her extended family that she met with her husband. I mean, that the disconnect here that Meghan has is like absolutely insane. She says that while some of the foods she used to eating were very different to the women in the kitchen, she loved being able to talk about it. It's a great icebreaker, Meghan says. And even through that, it kind of becomes the background to a much deeper conversation. Oh my gosh, the narcissism and the lack of depth to anything she's saying is off the charts. If you are believing this, I feel almost sorry for you that you actually buy that she gives two craps about any of this. She points out that some of the other groups use activities like sewing or playing board games versus cooking, but those that form bonds focus on what actually matters. Of course, she doesn't care about what actually matters. So Meghan tells me of the women from the Southern California Welcome Project. For so many of them, it would be very easy to go, my life has ended because everything I knew I was familiar with is gone. But these moments of togetherness that they have with each other and the Welcome Project, I hope reminds them that no, your life is just beginning. It's a very different chapter. It's beginning of something where you've taken steps that you never thought you would. Oh, the vapid nonsense here. So then we get to talk about the kids. With the holidays coming up, the talk turns to Archie and Lily, which I refuse to call Prince and Princess because they don't live there and they have no connection to the UK anymore. Thanks and courtesy to Meghan Markle. So she may have to deal with that someday, hopefully. And the traditions that Meghan holds dear or special, not having any family around. I admit that my son no longer believes in Santa, and we commiserate over the Christmas magic that seems ever fleeting. Okay, so it was the author. So some people messed up. The author admits my son no longer believes in Santa, and we commiserate over the Christmas magic that seems ever so fleeting. Megan says, I love the holidays. Of course, not with her husband's family or any of her actual family. 3 and 5, so every year gets better. She muses that at first. I think as a mom with children, you're just enjoying having them there, but they're not understanding everything that's happening yet. But now we're at the age where I can't wait to see through their lens every year. As for Thanksgiving, she says the Sussexes are always pretty low key. Yeah, because you have no family and no real friends. Her friends are all transactional friends, let's be honest. And Megan says, being close to my mom is great because that's the only family member they have, referring to Doria. Obviously. I love it how they say being close to my mom is great, referring to her mother, of course. I was thinking about in the past a few years of having Thanksgiving here, like many of us. I think you can always make sure there's room at the table for your friends who don't have family, which is really key, but no room for actual family, let's be honest. One friend is none other than feminist icon Gloria Steinem, who's in her 80s or 90s, and Megan is still fighting as if she's Gloria Steinem. She came for Thanksgiving one year. Oh, so impressed. I'm obviously not. Turns out that for the Harry and Meghan, the holidays looks minus Gloria Steinem and his and her entire family, just like any American Thanksgiving dinner. We're always making sure we have something fun to do. Like any other family, you spend time having your great meal, and then what do? Play games? All the same stuff. Everyone brings a guitar. Fun. What does that mean? That means nothing. That means literally nothing. Every single holiday is a new adventure, stressing that it's important for her that Archie and Lily can experience magic of traditions like great recipes that they end up connecting to a formative memory at Thanksgiving and putting out carrots for reindeers at Christmas. Is it me or does that sound super duper hollow? Because I think the point of Thanksgiving is not to remember great recipes, but to remember times with family. But she can't say that because she has no family. My goodness. Woman's Amina's last dance chat and clap around us as our chat wraps up. Megan, one later shared with me, is a center of energy. Yeah, because she only has to be with you for an hour and then she gets to go home. The attendee says that while she followed Megan's wedding and career throughout the years, she never expected Megan to be so cool, so humble, adding, she cares about what happens to us. This is important. No, she doesn't. I'm sorry, but she actually doesn't. I watch on as pictures are taken, laughs and smiles are exchanged. We chat about the beautiful cookware the women have selected from the store, gifted by owner Shiza Shahid. And one sweet moment that Megan poses with a baby girl who has been snoozing away in her mother's carrier all night. Soon enough, it's time to say goodbye. Before we go, I asked Megan what Americans do to help women like the ones we met feel more at home here. Her answer is simple. It's really easy. Just think about how you'd want somebody to treat you. How would you want someone to open their arms to you? Well, Megan, if we asked you that question, we know how you treat other people, and it's not so pleasant. So that means diddly squat. So why does all this matter? And what can we glean? And is this whole effort really helping Megan? I would argue it's definitely not helping her in the slightest. And how do we know? Well, this is from YouGov. And although I'm not sure exactly when this was updated, it seems to be somewhat recently, according to Newsweek, but sometimes they're not good about updating when they've done their latest survey. But here's what we have. Megan's popularity is currently at 23%. So this is the percentage of people who have a positive opinion on the topic. Disliked by 57%. That's incredibly high. Neutral is 19%. So if you're incredibly unpopular, what you want is a higher neutral because that means that you can maybe shove people in a positive direction. But she's disliked by 57% of the population. Now, I think that's actually higher. But what does this tell you? Because I think it's incredibly important, especially when you have such a glowing piece. What it tells you is that no matter how many of those Marie Claire like pieces Meghan Markle does, they are not going to work because the problem is that she can't fix the one thing that will help her, which is her relationship with her husband's family and her own family. That is what will actually help her, is making inroads with the monarchy in a positive way, apologizing for all the mistakes that she's made, all the pain she has put them through. That is what will actually right the ship. And that'll be what makes the Marie Claire article actually work. It doesn't work because nobody knows who the real Meghan Markle is in some ways, because she's trying to portray herself as almost perfect over here. And yet we have a massive trove of evidence that really behind the scenes, she's a totally different person. And she comes across as completely fake because of it. It seems fake. Everything she does seems incredibly fake. And the reason is that she can't show her real self because her real self is highly unpleasant. And she knows that and she has to hide it. And it's not working for her public image. And I would argue even it's really, really damaging her public image overall because everybody sees the two sides and they're not coming together. And Meghan just continues and trying to make fetch happen. Harry and Meghan, I always feel like they're trying to make fetch happen and it's just never happening. And they try again and again and again and again and again. And it's not happening. And I think Harry and Meghan really, really need to get it through their heads, especially Meghan, that you can't fake your way out of this. Stop trying to fake your way out of this because we've all seen at this point how you treat family. And if you treat family that way, when you treat people that you see for an hour nicely, well, we know most likely that you're doing that just for an instance, that is just fake. It's just a moment because the real you is behind the scenes. The real you has no relationship with your family and some of your once closest friends. She was incredibly close to Jessica Mulroney and dropped her for the slightest reason. And those kids are in her wedding pictures. Jessica had a seat, a front row seat at her wedding. And now she doesn't even talk to her as far as we're aware. And when Meghan does those things and then tries to show a different perspective of herself and Marie Claire, it comes across as totally and completely fake. And then when you read her words, they're so shallow. They're so vapid. There's nothing there. They're word salad nonsense because she herself is word salad nonsense in some ways. And so Meghan needs to stop doing these crazy things because they're not helping. Of course, she's going to find any journalist who is willing to do that, I think, to a certain extent, but I don't think any of it is real. And I think it puts her in an incredibly bad spot. So guys, let me know what you think of this video. Let me know what you think of Meghan the hypocrite. I'd love to know what you think. Thank you so much for watching and I shall see you soon. Bye.